What is the law? Romans 8 calls the law of, oh, I forgot a word. Can't do that. The law of sin and death. That's what it calls it. So who's under the law and sin of death? Every single person who is still in this kingdom. If you're not born again, that's where you are. And that's the law you're under. Now let's keep reading. Why? Why, God? I did it so that every single mouth may be stopped. What is God saying to you? And what is God saying to me? Shut up! Shut your mouth. So that all, how many? All the world may become free and righteous before God. Nope. Every single creature and thing that God created becomes unclean in his sight. Why? Because in order to keep the law, you know what you must have? Equality with God. You must be perfect as God is. You must be as eternal as God is. You must be as holy and as righteous as God is. Gotta be equal with God, friends. That's why the law talks about Christ and not about you, because he's the only one equal with God. So everyone becomes guilty. So what is the purpose of God giving the law? He just told you why he gave it. So that you can understand that you are a lawbreaker, that you are not equal with God. What makes a person a lawbreaker? You're not equal with God. They say, well, no one is equal with God. Exactly. That's why he says the whole world and not just humans. What did Job say? That the sun, the moon, the stars, none of that stuff is clean in God's eyes. So is he including them? Of course he is. He puts no trust in his angels. He puts no trust in any man. Why not? Because they're guilty before a holy God. And if you're trying to keep any of the law that we just talked about, what does it produce in you? It can only produce death and sin. That's it. And I don't care what part of it you try to keep. Therefore, here's the conclusion of why God gave the law. Therefore, by you doing anything concerning the law, no flesh will be declared not guilty in his sight. What? Even if I keep it? For by the law of sin and death is the knowledge that you are a sinner and you can't keep it. That's the problem. The problem is you think you can. When the book says that you can't. Who am I to believe? Am I to believe you over this word? Get out of here. No way. I'm going with this word. Why? Because he said it. Can you give me life? Can you raise me from the dead? Can you feed me? You say, oh yeah, I can go get some food from the grocery store. No, man. Can you cause the ground to produce food if God says don't? Can you sweeten water that God poisons? If God takes away all the animals, how are you going to give me meat? If he stops the sun from shining, how are you going to give me light? No. I'm going to stick with the one who called things that's not as though they are. The Creator. So, no matter what part of the law you want to talk about to me, it's immaterial. Why? Because God says it can only produce in you sin and death, even though it's holy and righteous. The law. So, what does this mean? What does it mean? It means that every human being that has ever lived had a distinct awareness of God's perfect, holy, and righteous standards. Every single human that has ever lived, from Adam to Moses, the law of God was written, look, internally within the human spirit as God's primary restraint against evil and wickedness. It was there, friends. It was always there. Ruling people by their conscience. The nation of Israel was then selected. So from Adam to Moses, God wrote the law. That same law, friends, the moral law, the ceremonial. How in the world did God write the ceremonial law? You need to go back and see what the ceremonial law is. But what's the ceremonial law? Sacrifices. What did Adam teach Cain and Abel? Sacrifices. So did they have the ceremonial law? Of course they had the ceremonial law. Adam acted as high priest. And when Abel and Cain was given the sacrifices, they were acting as priests because only the priests in the law was allowed to give the sacrifices. God wanted everyone to be a priest in the nation of Israel. Every believer today is a priest to God, giving up the sacrifices of our lips, which is our worship and praise to the Most High. The nation of Israel was then selected to be given God's perfect law, listen, written on tables of stone. So the first place, the entirety of the law, the civil, you say, oh, they didn't have any civil law before Moses and the Ten Commandments. You're not reading the book. This is the problem, again, with most people. They just say stuff out of their mouths and have no clue what they're talking about because they don't read the entirety of the book and allow the book to explain and talk about himself. Look at this, friends. You mean to tell me they did this right here? and didn't have any kind of government. Then the sons of Gomer were Asenes, Retha, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Donim. From these, the coastline peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands. Everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations. You mean to tell me they got borders and didn't have laws? Then how did they have borders? The sons of Ham was Cush, Mishram, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sebet, Ramah, and Saptakah. And sons of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth, first world ruler. He was a mighty hunter of souls before the Lord. Therefore it was said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And look at this. And the beginning of his kingdom. You mean to tell me they had a kingdom without civil law?